last week. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. I missed you all.
All right, that's perfect. That's perfect. I've got you on the wrong microphone, Josh. Say that again.
It's good to be back,
Okay.
and I missed you all.
Okay, well, we're glad to have you back. The rest of the B team's on the bench again this week, and it's time for us to talk a little sports. We start out last week, the Chiefs and the Denver Broncos, and all of us were wrong in our prediction about that game.
Absolutely. Well, no, I think all.
We were all
Chiefs.
right, but in the tenor of the game, I think would be how we were wrong.
It was 180 degrees opposite what I thought it would be. Incidentally, the rest of the B team is idle today, and why? I'll tell you exactly why. They are riveted to this soccer match.
Now, Ned.
We have the World Cup on in the studio, so we're watching that.
I just saw a guy kick a ball. Oh, my God.
It's Argentina up 2-0. I'll use the soccer term.
That's perfect.
They're too good to use zero.
And
so.
one of them was a tremendously exciting penalty kick.
Yeah.
Gee.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Let's
How
talk
about last
Ned.
week's game?
Let's talk real football. Let's talk our football, American football.
I think when the Chiefs got up 27-0, they subconsciously took their foot off the pedal a little bit. And Denver is not a team with the Russell Wilson at quarterback. Wilson's gotten a bad rap here. This is not his fault. He doesn't have any offensive line to work with at all. The Chiefs were in there. They flooded the backfield. Wilson was good enough to escape some of it. But you can't do that forever, and ultimately that's why the Broncos why they've had the difficult season they had. I thought they made a very nice comeback, played well. Part of it was because the Chiefs were a little bit lackadaisical on defense. Here's Mahomes throwing a trio of interceptions. They didn't really play with the verve in toward the end of the first half and into the second half that they could have. But bottom line is they won the game, and at least in my opinion, as an observer, I never developed the thought that they're going to lose this game. It just did not enter my mind. I thought, well, they are going to lose the point spread, which was 9.5, I think, but they're not going to lose this game.
Josh Roberts is boycotting watching the Chiefs, but he does watch the highlights. What'd you learn from watching the highlights?
Well, I kind of agree. I think it seems like they took their foot off the gas. They were up 27-0, like you said. The last thing was the Gay interception for a touchdown. I felt like they thought they had it well in hand, and then Jerry Jeudy decided that he was going to be the best player on the field for a while, and he had 3 touchdowns all after it was 27-0. So that's what got them back into it. And then I guess with Russell Wilson getting his concussion late in the game, that's probably what ended their chances. But I agree with you both. I mean, Russell Wilson is not the problem in Denver. The problem in Denver is they don't have an offensive line. Their defense isn't that great. And so they've got some weapons. I mean, Jerry Jeudy's a great receiver, but they got to be able to get the ball to him. And the Chiefs took care of that for the first half and then just kind of thought they could coast, it seemed, in the second half, which is too bad because this is the Jekyll and Hyde thing that drives me crazy about them.
Going to go off to a little bit siding here. Your Alabama guy pulled a stunt in that game that I have never seen go unchallenged until Sunday, and that's Mr. Jeudy. Mr. Jeudy felt he ran a pattern in which he was held, and he probably was. The official who was right there didn't call it, and that made Jeudy extremely angry. He was demonstrative, jumped up and down, carried on, took his helmet off on the field, and then clearly bumped the official. Went over, bumped him to the point where the official turned around and looked at him. That's ejection. You're out.
It should be, yeah.
He didn't even get a penalty for it. There was nothing. Taking your helmet off on the field is a penalty right there. In fact, I'll go into a little history here on that one. And then hitting an official, you're out.
Oh yeah,
You're
it should be, yeah.
Automatically. Nothing happened to the guy at all.
I think the penalty should have been called on taking your helmet off, but I thought that the contact was incidental. I didn't feel it was egregious.
Joe, it wasn't. It was incidental, but that makes no difference. You cannot touch an official. Okay, nothing happens to Jeudy. Now, guys, I'm going to go back about 8, 9, 10 years ago. About that Chiefs opening game of the season's in Cleveland, playing the Cleveland Browns. And Cleveland has upset Kansas City. 5 seconds to go. The Cleveland Browns have it won. They're celebrating on the field. Now, keep in mind, there's 5 seconds to go. and one of the big linemen for the Browns took his helmet off. He was waving it around. Only 5 seconds.
Yeah, penalty.
Out it came, put the Chiefs in field goal territory, win the game.
Ooh.
Wow.
That did happen. It's about a decade ago, maybe less. My chronology at my age is different. But by the same token, it did win the game. Yeah, the penalty is there. It's in the books, and he wasn't called for it.
I said to you a couple of weeks ago that after watching one of the Chiefs game, I felt like I agreed with you that they were the best team in the NFL. After watching that Denver game, I don't think they're the best team in the NFL.
Well, everything is relative. I think you're probably going to say the Buffalo Bills are with their.
No, I'm going to say this really hurts. I'm going to say Dallas. I think Dallas is the best team.
Dallas almost lost last week. Now, admittedly, it's almost.
Almost, but that defense, they have a really good offensive line. Defense plays, almost lights out, and they have a really good running game.
Now, we do our show next week on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
But the following show is the following Sunday. What are you going to say when the Philadelphia Eagles go down to Dallas and beat the Cowboys on Christmas Eve, which is probably not going to happen?
Oh, I hope it happens.
I think those two teams, Philadelphia and Dallas, are the best in the NFL. And I think all the news stories that I've seen leading up to this last week, Patrick Mahomes was the MVP. Jalen Hurts is now considered by most to be the MVP because throwing 3 interceptions in a game and 3 just like you have to have their arms tied behind their back to not make those plays. So
I will admit the 3 interceptions I think came from a lack of concentration on his part, except for one. He had Travis Kelce wide open downfield, and the defender saw what was happening and stepped right in front of the pass and picked it off. That was one. The other 2, I'm just not sure Mahomes mentally was into that ballgame. When they got up 27-0, there's such a thing as establishing a big lead and coasting, and the Chiefs have an affinity for doing that.
Yeah, let me ask you this, though. One of the greatest athletes of the last century, I think most of us would agree that he's in the top 5, is Michael Jordan.
Oh,
right?
gosh, yes.
You ever see him not mentally in a game? Ever?
No.
I don't think that even when he retired and then came back, he was still averaging 20 points a game. So, no, I don't think I have. He was
for the
always
Wizards.
Dedicated.
And that's I agree with Josh. That's the thing that scares me about this team is that, and Ned, I'm not making fun of you, but you always talk about being professional athletes. And I don't think this is something that you should turn on and turn off. If you're going to be a professional athlete, now I'm not talking about going out there and just obliterating a team and running up the score, 63-10, but there's something that's got to be fixed here with the Chiefs because at some point you can't just rely on, we'll turn it on and we'll win this game.
Right.
Why don't you take today's game with the Houston Texans and make a definitive assessment of that? Let's see how Kansas City should win this one easily.
Yes.
Well, yeah, the Texans are 1-11 and 1, right?
Let's just see how Kansas City reacts, because I do think they're going to apply the same formula that they do to the others. Go out and hit this team with the right cross, show them, hey, don't even bother. We're the boss out here. Let's see what happens.
Let me ask you this. What's the point spread today?
14.5.
Okay.
The Chiefs, I think, have covered, now I may be wrong on this, but I think they have covered the point spread this year 4 times.
4 times? Mm-hmm. Okay. We talked a few weeks ago that they hadn't covered in like 6 weeks.
Well, and I say I may have to be corrected. It hasn't been very many.
Right.
A lot of these games have been artificially close, and I say artificially because Kansas City is markedly the better team, but they've made the other team look good. Now, that's not the case with the Bills, which they lost. It is the case with Indianapolis, which they should not have lost.
Yeah, that was a horrible loss.
And the Chargers, who are very capable. But, hey, the Denver Broncos have one of the top defensive teams. Kansas City hit them with 34 points last week. And San Francisco is the number 1 defensive team, and the Chiefs hit them for 44. Come on, this team can do whatever they want.
Offensively, yes, to a certain degree, but it's just kind of that mentality. We're hitting on it today of being able to just switch it on and switch it off. The Texans play. You were mentioning Dallas, and my take on them being one of the best teams in the NFL is that the Texans were the team that almost beat them last week.
Exactly.
Played them tight.
That's what we're talking about here. And Houston's not very good. Obviously, with a 1-11 record, they aren't good. They don't have any kind of offense. They're one of the worst rushing teams in all of football. Their rushing defense is almost the worst in football. And yet they were able to give Dallas an awfully tough time because Dallas just simply was not mentally ready to play. Could affect the Chiefs, but even, guys, I don't mean this to be that they're omnipotent. No team is. But Kansas City could go into this and play, now don't misunderstand the way I'm going to articulate, half-fast football. And they could still come out and win this game easily.
You know, wise friend of mine always says that these are professional athletes. You can never tell what happens.
What kind of a fool said that?
I don't know. He's a very wise guy. He's got great hair. He's got great hair and a great laugh.
A lot of wisdom.
And so, I mean, just you never know what's going to happen on a given Sunday. We're about 49 minutes away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show. Kickoff for today's game is at noon. Chiefs and Texans. They are playing in Houston today. And as Ned has alluded to, not a very good football team, but played a good game last week. What does that mean? Who knows? Who has any idea what's going to happen?
All right, Joe, and this is not the given Sunday. Please understand that.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, Kansas City's 14.5-point favorite going into this one. I do think the Texans come out and give it their all. That again, they're pro athletes and they get a paycheck for this, but they're simply not as good. Their rushing defense is terrible. They don't have a singular starting quarterback. They'll have dual quarterbacks in there, Jeff Driscoll and Davis Mills.
Who?
See, exactly. Who are these guys?
I thought you were going to at least give me the name of some washed-up quarterback that I
Jeff George.
Jeff George was running
Sean
out there.
Watson, who was the quarterback, and
the
now
guy with
he's
the beard.
not there. But they haven't replaced him.
Right.
You have now Driscoll. Driscoll's been around. He's been in the NFL for a number of years, all as a backup. He played at Louisiana Tech his last year, but played the previous years at Florida. And Davis Mills, who is a very, very fine QB at Stanford, and he is a Stanford kid and a big kid. He's 6'4". But, again, he's playing before no offensive line at all. They're just decimated with injuries. The receivers are all gone. This just isn't a very good team.
How do they use this dual quarterback system?
It's up to the coach, and what he does is kind of relay them in. I don't think it's going to be series per series per series, but it may be per dividing the quarters, like maybe half of first quarter, half of second quarter. I don't know.
Well, I mean, do they use one in a distinct running situation?
No.
Is one of them a better passer, the other one a better runner?
No, I wouldn't call it that. I think it's just a difference in their philosophical approach. Each one has a different one, although you try to keep things as relatively easy as you can. But they can't do very much. They don't have too many receivers on their team who aren't injured, and their running game is very much it just is not a good team.
I wish you could see the look on my face right now because it looks like somebody said, there's dessert, but it's coconut. And I don't like coconut.
It's like they're just grasping at straws.
I don't like that idea of the dual quarterback system.
You have never had a coconut fresh out of a whole container of ice. Oh, when they slice that coconut open and drink that milk in there, oh my!
I agree with Ned on this one.
My dad was big on that sort of stuff, not me.
Pretty good, Joe. Pretty good. You got to give it a try.
I don't like it. Don't like coconut. Just not my thing. Just not my deal. Okay. I'm a professional broadcaster, and
but anything can happen to pro broadcasting.
Anything can happen. So, the Chiefs. They're our team. They're our team that we're around, that we talk about. Do you think that there's a possibility that you're seeing something that typically you don't see in football? You see more in basketball. You see it more in baseball because of the longer season. And that is that the Chiefs are playing for the playoffs. So they do what they need to do to win a game, and they try to protect everybody as much as they possibly can so that they're healthy. And they're not just going all to the wall all the time.
Well, they do have the luxury of a lot of depth on this team, and that's how Andy Reid has structured this team. You see them during the regular season, they're signing players to a taxi squad here and getting somebody else and release somebody else. Well, that's all engineered to create a depth situation. And Kansas City is very, very good at doing that. They've been very fortunate now. They're not a lucky team. They're a good team. But they've been very fortunate in not suffering any catastrophic injuries. Sure, they've had injuries. You've had the muscle pulls. Kadarius Toney, I think, is going to try to play today. I wouldn't. I'd save him for something later on. But after all, you pay him to play. But having said that, they don't. They have not had anything. The one player, and as a matter of fact, I don't think Chris Jones has been sick. I'm not sure he's going to be suiting up today. The one player on Kansas City's team who they cannot win without is Mahomes. They have to have him. Anything other than Patrick Mahomes, and this becomes a markedly different football team.
Well, they've been very healthy, and I'm sitting here looking at the depth chart, the roster right now. Tony was announced earlier that he was going to try to give it a go today. McCole Hardman still on the injured reserve. He was starting to show flashes of being the guy just before he got hurt. Juju Smith-Schuster has been very good. He's had a little time off. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Just nothing from this guy this year.
Do you remember, and I know you don't, but do you remember, well, you don't remember, back in the preseason when the Chiefs acquired him, as a free agent from the Green Bay Packers.
You said yes. No,
why are they letting this guy go?
I remember that's one of your mantras. Is you're the guy that always looks at the glass half empty.
And this glass is half empty in this one.
Yeah.
Why did they?
I think it's all empty now.
It all said that. Boy, there's more. They're getting Valdez-Scantling. This is great. He's top receiver. Wait a minute. If he's a top receiver, why are they letting him go as a free agent? They need receivers, and yet they let him go. Well, who knows? Is it his attitude? Are they physical skills that are deteriorating a little bit? That part of it I don't know, but I do know, and you can see it, there's a reason why they are let go as free agents.
I tend to think it has to be a physical thing, especially now, because, I mean, he has not produced. He has not really showed anything all that positive. So I almost think that they knew that he was going to have some health issues, or his skills had diminished physically when they saw him, and so they're like, all right, well, we'll move on. I mean, the Packers are terrible this year too, but
the only corollary to that is I'm slightly disagreeing with you. Oh, look at this! Another soccer player is on his deathbed. I put him on the critical list right now. He can't get up. Here's a situation in which you have. I think psychology enters into it more than anything else, and attitude and effect on a team. Case in point is Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
He has recovered. But how many teams are after him? Well, the Dallas Cowboys made, I use headlines here in a relative sense, headlines over the weekend, close to a deal. Well, wait a minute. If this guy is so damn good and such a great prize, why didn't the Rams try to keep him, number one? He's a free agent. And number two, why is everybody hesitating on signing the guy? So here's the same guy, the same Odell Beckham Jr., who was, boy, this boggles my mind. A plane's about to take off down in Florida.
Yeah.
And he gets pulled off the plane, and the flight is delayed because of was he lethargic and not answering any questions or something like that? And people had asked him whatever they were, key questions, and they decided he was on something. Get him out of here. Is that the kind of person you want hanging around?
No, and that's the thing that
we have Mike hanging around. You're kind of describing him.
That's the thing that is hard to dig into, is what are the real reasons for a player being released? What are the real reasons that they don't re-sign someone? And it's probably not as difficult for you to find that information, but for the average person, they can't just look it up and say, oh, well, it's because he's an alcoholic or he has a drug problem, because they keep a lot of that secret because I guess in a way they don't want to damage the value that a player could have with another team.
I don't think, and I think there's a rule against that too.
Oh, well, yeah, and it's probably for that reason. It's the value of their commodity.
Well, there are all sorts of variables, no question about that. But again, when you see action like this take place, there are other reasons. The same with this transfer portal in college sports. Now think about that. Thus and such, hey, my God, they just got thus and such from UCLA. How about it? Wait a minute. Why isn't he playing for UCLA? Because he wanted more playing time. Well, why wasn't he playing for them?
Right.
What makes you think he's going to play down here or what other place? There are a number of variables why these players choose that. Some of them are legitimate.
Sure.
But there are others that are not. And how do you discover this? I don't know.
But you know what they all have in common? They're professional athletes.
No, not college. They are.
Yeah, they are. They're getting paid now, so they're professionals. That's the definition.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
I have to keep the mics down because Ned's yelling at the TV every time somebody hits a turf. In the World Cup, they're in the
bogus. Come on, man.
Second half, nearing the 63rd minute. Argentina winning 2-0. 2-0 right now. Looks like they are on their way to a World Cup. Let's talk college football because there's a lot going on. Josh Roberts, one of our college football aficionados, and we'll get his opinion on the Final Four. But let's talk about the big news right here in our little corner of the world, Bobby Petrino.
Bobby Petrino was announced on Thursday, unofficially by the college, but officially by Nevada, Las Vegas, as moving on to take over for the defensive coordinator. It's a new coach there. Barry Odom is the new coach at Nevada, Las Vegas, and I'm sure he and Petrino had association. Coach Odom had been at Missouri for a number of years and then been at Arkansas for a couple of years as defensive coordinator, and the Bears played down there, played Arkansas. Well, when Coach Odom got the head coaching job out at Nevada, Las Vegas, he said, boy, I need some really good offensive, and that's what Coach Petrino is, an offensive genius. Look at the people he's recruited. We had Jason Shelley here this year. We had Lamar Jackson, who was a Heisman Trophy winner at Louisville, and Bobby got him in there. So, yeah, he does know what he's doing. Hired him, and now the Bears have a new coach. Or he will officially be announced tomorrow at a press conference over at the Great Southern Bank Arena. And that's Ryan Beard, who had been the Bears' defensive coordinator down here. So I think things are working out. It's going to stay, to some extent, in the Petrino family, since Beard is Bobby's son-in-law. So this will, I think, carry on with the same kind of philosophy that had been going on.
I hope so.
We all hope so. Yes.
So I said when Petrino was hired he wouldn't be here very long because this was the new stepping stone for him to rebuild his career. So he's moving on to
UNLV,
a mediocre Division I football team, but maybe he can make it better. I think he's shooting for becoming a head coach of that team in a couple of years because Odom's not that good of a coach.
Never know. Now, UNLV really hasn't had their Mountain West Conference. They did play a pretty good schedule this year. They did not win in that schedule, but they had a couple Big Ten conference teams. They had Notre Dame on there on national TV. So they play an up-level brand of football. It just hasn't been real good.
Right. I mean, like I said, I feel like it's the next step of Petrino rebuilding who he was. So
I'm sorry. We are watching the World Cup. And
hey, come on, guys. We're doing a football show.
I know, but I'm watching this, and you would think that France was winning 2-0 because they look like they're in a stall right now. It's like if they're going to score, if they're going to get back involved in this,
Joe,
They have to attack.
That's
Right.
not a stall. That's soccer.
You guys.
All right. Well, I mean, we all kind of called this at the beginning of the hiring of Coach Petrino because he has a reputation for leaving programs. He stayed longer than what I thought that he would stay.
Yeah.
I thought that might be one and done. And then I'm a bit surprised that he left after this season because this was not a resume building season.
No, not at all.
But he has built his resume.
Yes.
It's past tense. He has done that at other schools. Look what he had at Arkansas when he was down there, been the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, been coach at Louisville a couple of times. Hey, the man's resume is pretty doggone good. So, yeah, you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt there. And when the Bears played Arkansas this year and Coach Odom was down there as the defensive coordinator and saw Missouri State go up 7-0 and then later 29 to whatever it was, and have Arkansas on the ropes before losing it by, I think, what was the final score, 37-28 or something like that. But whatever it was, I think that's cemented in Coach Odom's mind that, hey, this man knows what he's doing on offense, so let's get him out here. And he does. His track record is proven.
But he's the defensive coordinator.
No. He's offensive.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I thought he was hired as the defensive coordinator.
That's the head coach down here is defensive.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So,
All
okay.
right. Makes sense. All right, Josh, since you were with us last, the Final Four has been picked, and you came in firing on all cylinders this morning. You had some very strong opinions about TCU.
I do. I've watched college football since 1983, and Ned's going to disagree with me on all this, but that's fine.
I disagree.
I have never.
You haven't watched it since 1983.
I have never.
It was 82.
I've never seen a team lose to a lower ranked team and not drop at all in the rankings, and that's what happened to TCU. They were the third ranked team. They played number 10, which was Kansas State. They lost to Kansas State in overtime, so it was a good game. It was a close game, but they didn't drop at all in the rankings. They stayed third, whereas USC, who was fourth, played number 11 Utah in their championship game and got beat by 20 points, and they dropped to 10, I think. And so, look, I've said several times already, Alabama didn't deserve to be in the Final Four. Alabama ended up 6th, and Ohio State was 5th. And so with 3 and 4 both losing, you would think that 5 and 6 would move up to 3 and 4. But they didn't drop TCU at all, which you're not going to convince me that they shouldn't have dropped in the ranking at all. And I understand what you're saying, Ned. You said they didn't want Ohio State to be third and play Michigan again. But what I'm saying is TCU should have at least dropped to 5th, because in every other situation where that has happened, a team of higher rank losing to a low-ranked team drops in the rankings.
But if you had replaced them, you would have been replacing TCU in the top 4 with a team that had lost 2 games. And
right.
Texas Christian only had lost 1. This was TCU's only loss. They fell in overtime to a nationally ranked Kansas State team, which is going to the Sugar Bowl. This is a very good K-State team, and they lost when TCU decided to take a gamble. There was no – if they had dropped, it would have been to number 4. Well, that's going to ruin the matchup. So it doesn't really matter where you are except for your opponent. And now TCU will play Georgia in the first round. And I'm sorry.
No, TCU plays Michigan, and Georgia plays Ohio State.
That's right. That's why they didn't move them. They did not want Ohio State and Michigan to play in a semifinal. Championship is fine, but drop them out of the top 4 on 1 loss in an overtime. And in your first loss of the season, no, that would have been unconscionable. Now, again, it would have also been replacing them with, again, a double-loss team. And while that's not unheard of, you're campaigning for Alabama to be in there. I understand that. Alabama
a little
was
bit,
fine.
but I understand what you're saying about a 2-loss team. And in that case, they shouldn't have put Alabama at 6 if they didn't want them to have the opportunity to get back into the Final Four.
They put Alabama in number 5, thinking that if TCU got walloped and then we got the stuffings beat out of them, then there was justification for dropping them out. But there wasn't. There really wasn't. And Texas Christian's a good ball club. Max Duggan is a terrific quarterback. They have a very stout football team. And I'll tell you, they're capable of giving whomever they play a very difficult time. They're a good team, very good team.
Michigan will beat them by 3 touchdowns.
Is that a wager that I hear on the agenda here?
Maybe. Well, I think it was a prediction at very least. Are you gonna?
No, he's offering a wager.
Oh, okay. All right. You guys gonna lay some chocolate chips on it?
And Georgia will beat Ohio State by as much as they want to.
Don't sell the Buckeyes short.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty doggone good, and Georgia has shown a situation. Let's put it this way: Georgia, in their last game of the season, and this is the SEC championship.
Yeah,
they allowed a lesser team, LSU, to score 30 points.
Yeah,
it was 50-30.
So did the Chiefs,
but they didn't lose.
They did not lose.
TCU lost to a lesser team.
No, K-State is not necessarily a lesser team.
Come on, Ned. What's the point of the rankings if it doesn't identify teams that are better?
The rankings are rubbish, and everybody knows that. They're for publicity purposes, except for the bowl situation in Kansas State.
They need to go back to the computer model then.
Kansas State is going to play Alabama, your ball club.
I know.
You watch what kind of a tough time that the K-State Wildcats have. I think that Alabama wins, but I do think K-State will have a big say as to what goes on.
Wow, Josh is
your argument is senseless. Turn his microphone off.
Feeling his pain. We'll be back.
I'm being censored.
We'll be back with more Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Very little has changed in the World Cup since we last left you. It's still 2-0, though. It looks like there may be a penalty kick coming up here for France. Oh, they French.
Yeah, that's definitely a penalty.
Sacre bleu.
Sacre bleu. 18 minutes away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show. We wanted to talk a little more about college football. We specifically talk about the FBS because a couple of Missouri Valley teams are in the championship.
This is not an anomaly. It has happened before, but the FCS, which used to be known, and I still refer to it as Division I AA, it's about a half a step below the big shots. And occasionally you'll see an FCS team beat somebody. South Dakota State, for instance, had Iowa on the ropes this year. Mm-hmm. Finally lost the game 7-3, a game in which there were no touchdowns. Okay. The FCS playoffs, guys, is 24 teams. You have the first round in which the top 8 teams get a bye. Mm-hmm. And then they go at it from there for three more.
France scores 2-1.
Did you just have an intestinal attack?
Yeah, a little bit. Put a belt in my mouth.
Anyway, the FCS playoffs go on, and the first 8 get a bye, and then you have the initial first round of competition. Missouri Valley Conference this year, which is arguably the best of the Division I AA leagues in America, had 3 teams invited: North Dakota, North Dakota State, and South Dakota State. South Dakota State's number 1 ranked team in America. North Dakota State is the 9-time national champion. North Dakota, University of North Dakota from Grand Forks, was knocked out in the second round, I believe. First or second round, whatever it was. They were knocked out of it. Anyway, we went through all of the playoffs and down to the semifinals, which were Friday and Saturday. North Dakota State won theirs against a very tough football team, one with which you guys are not familiar and quite, in the University of the Incarnate Word out of San Antonio, Texas. Largest Catholic college in Texas, and they just became a Division I school about 3 or 4 years ago, and they are really, really good. They can score. Their quarterback's a transfer from LSU, and he absolutely riddled things. They were up 16-0 on North Dakota State on Friday night, and the Bison came back to win it 35-32 in a
nice.
All right, that got North Dakota State into the national finals yesterday afternoon in Brookings,
Wait a
South
minute,
Dakota.
France just scored again.
Will you knock it off to hell
They
with
did.
this
It's
stuff.
2-2. France just scored again.
Oh, my gosh.
It's tied.
That's what happens when you take your foot off the gas.
Can't
Yeah,
stop with the
Andy
excitement
Reid.
on this. South Dakota State won their game, knocked off Montana State yesterday. So it's South Dakota State against North Dakota State for the second time this year, and they will play for the national championship on January 8th, I believe it is, in Frisco, Texas. 2 teams from the same conference. It has happened before, but it still, I think, demonstrates the fact that this is the best Division I AA team, or a league, I should say, in America. Bears will play both of them next year.
Did the Bears play both of them this year?
No, didn't play North Dakota State.
Okay.
They weren't on the schedule. But
Okay.
they did play South Dakota State, and that is where the Bears began their tumble.
Right,
It was
right.
right after Arkansas.
Hmm.
They're good.
Let me ask you a legitimate question here, because soccer is known for ties. Can there be a World Cup tie?
No.
Cannot be.
No, they play extra time, and then they go to penalty kicks.
Wouldn't
If it's tied in extra time.
Wouldn't that, Ned, would you just be...
Wouldn't that keep you watching?
penalty kicks, Ned? You up for it?
Ned doesn't
Wanna watch
care.
penalty kicks today? Want to hang out and watch penalty
Ned.
do shots?
Have you ever heard or seen Ned Reynolds speechless while you're seeing
Ned,
it?
I want you to know that even though you don't like soccer, soccer likes you.
It does.
It's not a matter of not liking it. I think it's being foisted on us, and it is not indigenous to this country.
The World Cup is only once every 4 years, Ned. How's that being foisted on anyone?
Look at your television. It's on every minute, and it's during the summer, during the winter. It's on all the time. And why? I'm going to give you a little example here for what it's worth. You're not going to like this, but during the World Cup competition, when the USA played, the Fox people estimated 12 million viewers.
Right.
When the USA did not play, the estimation was 600,000 viewers.
That doesn't surprise me.
That's a precipitous drop.
It's a huge drop.
Which tells you about what the interest is.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, I know I'm in the minority when I say I do enjoy watching soccer, but that's because in America there are so many other sports that have better marketing, better funding, and they've developed over the years to
Better
be
sports.
Well, okay, if you want to call them better sports or not, whatever. The world loves soccer. America doesn't.
And we're America. Okay.
We're number one. We're number
You're
one.
talking about the biggest chameleon in the world. It's my MC over here, the moderator.
I'm a chameleon?
Every single week he has degraded this sport, and now all of a sudden you're hollering, "Go!"
Well, I did, because that's what they do.
Why are you watching it? We're
Because it's
doing a
on.
football show here.
It's on. It. You know, I agree with Josh in the sense that this is the Super Bowl. This is bigger than the Super Bowl for soccer in the world.
For the world, yes.
For the world. And I'm interested in sports, and so, I mean,
And bear in mind, Joe likes those obscure sports like pickleball and things like that.
yeah,
And
baseball.
and baseball, that obscure sport called baseball.
Yeah,
But Joe likes to throw those off-ball things, off-key things on there. So
I'm just helping out all the people that don't want to watch this. I'm just telling you,
Right.
it's 2-2. All right, so let's talk about baseball for just a minute because, the owners complained in the off season last year that we don't have any money.
right,
We're going broke. And then they opened up their checkbooks this off season, and they're, it's been what, almost $500 million or more, or $1.5 billion.
It's been huge. There's no question about that. But look at some of the free agents who were out there. When you have an Aaron Judge and when you have a
Right.
Trey Turner and people of this caliber, Xander Bogaerts, these are top-level baseball players, and they're going to demand big salaries. And no, while the owners do poor-mouth things, they're not poor. None of them falls into that category. You wouldn't be owning a major league team if you were poor, and that's a major league team in any sport. I don't
True.
care who
You
you
mean
are.
the Steinbrenners aren't on food stamps?
They can't spell food stamps.
What was the
Come
big
on.
signing this week? There was one, wasn't there?
Rondon went to the Yankees, and Dansby Swanson signed with the Cubs. Your
Well,
Cubs.
Right.
Has he signed yet?
I believe he has.
I saw that they were considering signing him, but I didn't see that
The John Heyman reported.
I didn't see that he had officially signed a contract with him. But Dansby Swanson's a good player. But one of the other key shortstops there was Trey Turner, who went to Philadelphia. The Cardinals were thought to be in the market for a shortstop, but now evidently they aren't at all. The big kid, Carlos Correa, he went to the San Francisco Giants for beaucoup, a 13-year contract, I think.
Yeah,
it was.
that's a ridiculous.
Holy cow.
The years were ridiculous. I mean, the amount of money is ridiculous, but the years, I mean, they're going to be stuck with that. at
Yeah,
the end of
13-year
that.
contract that's a
I wanna
long time.
say, I think I'm right on this, but his contract is going to run until like 2040.
See, there's the card.
somewhere
Wow.
out there.
There's the car.
So the fact of the matter remains that there is money to be had, and if I were
they're
young
opening
enough
it
to
up.
have a child who was playing baseball, I'd say, hey, you play baseball. That's
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah.
it's going to be.
Definitely.
If it's still here. Yeah, if it's
It'll be here.
The declining
It'll
viewership.
be here. Oh, it's not declining to that point.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about our picks for today's game on Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
You just have to wait 5 minutes for the start of the Chiefs pregame show. Mitch Holtis and crew in, where are they at today? Is it Houston? I'm never sure where those Texas teams are playing at. Not sure where they're housed at anymore. Especially that team, because didn't they used to be...
No, they've always been the Houston Texans.
Okay, but I always think of the Houston Oilers, though.
The Tennessee Titans now, but the
Yep. That's one thing about the NFL is they keep moving teams back to places that haven't been able to support teams.
Right.
And so that always kind of annoys me a little bit about it. I mean, Cleveland Browns are now the Baltimore Ravens, and there's a Cleveland Browns that is an expansion team, and we're not supposed to think of them as being the Cleveland Browns that are the Baltimore Ravens today. And the Indianapolis Colts are the Baltimore Colts, and they moved out of town overnight, and, whatever.
Welcome to the world of professional
Whatever.
sports.
St. Louis football Cardinals are now the Arizona Cardinals.
And previous to that, they were the Chicago Cardinals.
right.
Los Angeles Rams were the
St. Louis Rams,
St.
and then
Louis Rams.
L.A. Rams, St. Louis Rams, L.A. Rams again.
And the
Wait a
Raiders are
minute,
the worst.
Wait a minute. There's a corollary to that, too. They were the Cleveland Rams
Oh my gosh!
Oh, my gosh.
before
yeah.
they moved to Los Angeles.
And the names don't make sense. I mean, is Utah known for jazz at all?
Oh, I don't think so.
All right, it's time for our picks.
Ned's ironclad, rock-solid pick of the week.
All right, Ned, your pick of the week.
This is has all the earmarks of a one-sided game, and it probably will be. Kansas City is just much better. Houston's the worst team, arguably, in the whole National Football League. Kansas City's a 14.5-point favorite. That's a lot of points. But the KC Chiefs, if there's a lesson to be learned from last week's game, maybe it had soared with them. You can't take your foot off the pedal, doesn't matter what the team is. I think the Chiefs win this one. I'm going to say 38-13.
38-13, okay.
Okay,
That's a
so you
big
think
score.
they're going to cover the spread. Here's where I'm bouncing back and forth because normally I would say 14.5-point spread they're not going to cover, but everybody's thinking that because 14.5 points is so much. So I think it depends on how many people are betting on it in Vegas, but I'm going to say they're going to cover the spread because more people are going to bet against the spread. So I think they'll win. Let's say if they don't take their foot off the gas, I think it'll be 42-10.
Chiefs have not played well in the red zone this year, so I'm going to say it's a Butker game that he's going to kick 4 field goals, and they'll score 2 touchdowns. So that's 26, and I'll give Houston 12.
Okay,
That's
the
what I think.
over-under is, I think, 49 on this.
So I'm going under.
You're going under it?
And you're
Yeah.
not covering the spread.
I won't cover the spread.
Okay.
No. So
Well, you're just a negative thinker. You always have been.
glass is half empty.
Right.
The glass is half empty. So all this week, Mike the intern will be out of the studio. I will be here with Ned Reynolds, so we'll be doing the morning show. We'll be talking sports, so I please ask you to get up early and stick around and chat with us as we talk about sports. We will be back on the air on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Can you believe it's already here?
Can't. And it's next weekend. How about that?
Yeah,
Wow.
next weekend. And most of the games, are there any games on Christmas at
To
all?
my knowledge, there are none.
So everything's on that Saturday, which would be nice.
Mhm.
It's nice for the players, nice for the fans.
There is one, I believe, on Monday night.
Yeah. So we'll be here starting at 10 a.m. because that is the time that we will go on the air. And then at 11 o'clock will be the Chiefs pregame show. And then at noon will be the kickoff for the Chiefs, and they're playing Seattle.
The Seattle Seahawks, and they are another team that has struggled so badly this year.
Chiefs have a light schedule to end the season. They've got Houston, Seattle, Denver, and then Las Vegas. Vegas has been out of the playoff picture completely now at this point. But there you go. You're brought up to date. You know what's going on. Get set as the Chiefs take on the Houston Texans right here in your home for the Kansas City Chiefs in Southwest Missouri. 104.7 The Cave.